Transition, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Surrounded by Details podcast with me, Stevo. I am your host, and thank you so much for tuning in one more time, another time on this lovely Tuesday evening, or evening is the right word. It is 7 p.m. here in Phuket, because we are not in Bangkok at the moment, and we are writing the year 2018, January 9th. And I am looking forward to talk today to a person that I haven't talked to for a very long time. He is one of the photographers that I got to know first when I started my photography career, and he is one of the main photographers, if you want to call it that, for Red Bull. He is shooting the World Cliff Diving Series of Red Bull. He's shooting some air race, and he's shooting some downhill skating and all kinds of other stuff, car pictures. He is all over the place, a Kiwi if I'm not mistaken, and living now in Switzerland. We decided to do another episode in the evening, and this goes specially out for all you people that are out training here in Phuket, because training goes until the evening, and then I hope that everybody has time to settle down at home, lean back and listen to an interesting podcast with a interesting guest. But before we get to it, as always, I would like to mention our sponsor, the Dreamcatcher Hostel Bar and Cafe in Bangkok, Sathorn. If you are having plans of visiting the lovely city of angels, big Bangkok, then please make sure to check in with the Dreamcatcher Hostel Bar and Cafe. And if you already have a place to stay, if you are a fool, which I hope you are not, then please pass by the Dreamcatcher Hostel Bar and Cafe anyway, because it is a great place to be, with lovely craft beer and even more lovely green curry and pad thai. Their local Thai food is off the hook. Highly recommended. And yeah, we're gonna continue, because 2018 is a new year, and it is a new beginning for some of our partners and sponsors. And with that being said, welcome, dear Indigo Float Center here in Phuket. They also support us with their location and office today, because we are recording straight from the Indigo Float / Treml FC office. Thank you so much for that we can get in here and do the podcast recordings that we are gonna do today and in 2 days, and the one that we already did on Sunday, with Tiffany Teo, who is about to fight a fight in Jakarta. And it's not just only any fight, it is the first strawweight world championship fight between her and the Chinese Ying Nan Xiong, or Xiong Nan Jing, or however you turn it. I'm really sorry, but me and names and grammatics and names don't go along very well. So yeah, if you haven't listened to that episode, then do yourself a favor and go back in time, listen to that episode. It was really fun. And I actually went to Phuket Top Team today to shoot her opponent, Xiong, and also Vitaly Big Dash yesterday. We have Marat Gafurov coming up, Yusuf Sadulev, who is also going to fight on the Jakarta card. It is a big card. There is a lot of pictures that need to be taken. So that is the reason why I am in Phuket at the moment. And to be honest, I can't really complain, because the sun is shining, and we have a pool here where I'm staying. So I am enjoying life between all the work that has to be done. If you're wondering, let me go back here to the Jakarta event for One Championship. If you're wondering where you can buy tickets, where you can get in on the live stream, because One Championship always stream their prelims on Facebook, and then it goes over to the pay-per-view. You can go on onefc.com and make sure to get your daily MMA in. Again, do yourself a favor. And where are my manners? I haven't even asked you how you feel today. It is a lovely day. As I mentioned, it is Sunday. I'm feeling really good. I'm actually having a beer after the podcast. I'm looking forward to have one or two more with a couple of good friends, because that is what life is all about. No matter how much you work, no matter how busy you are, you should always make time to just sit around with your friends and have a good talk about everything and nothing in life. But I guess tonight it's going to be a little bit more than nothing, probably most likely cryptocurrency, because that is something that I got in a while ago. And ever since I got into cryptocurrency, it shows you how many of your friends are into cryptocurrency as well. So yeah, that is a subject that I deal with a lot at the moment. So to come back to this podcast, it is a nice switch to finally talk a little bit more photography, and also photography in the world of sports, because it is not like any other photography. Like portrait photography separates itself obviously from sports photography. There are different styles. Sometimes you have to find your own style. Sometimes you combine styles. It's very interesting. And with Dean Treml, he has a very, very, how do I put this without sounding wrong, news picture style, but with a little bit of Red Bull touch, if that makes sense. It is a mix between editorial and news photography. Very interesting. If you don't know about Dean Treml, then please make sure to check out his social media, as always in the information below. So if you're listening on iTunes, Podbean, or Overcast, or wherever you're listening to our podcast, then do yourself a favor and go to YouTube, go down below on the description and check out all the links. Click to support, share, like, and maybe once you're down there, leave us a comment, because without comments, we don't know what we are doing right, and we don't know what we are doing wrong. And as we saw on our last episode with Tiffany Theo, we also have a live chat available where you can ask questions, and sometimes we're in a good mood and literally forward every question that is getting asked on the live chat, because this podcast, Surrounded by Details, is not only about the certain subjects, photography, MMA. It is about how people ended up there, their journeys and their adventure in life. So yeah, forward us your question, participate in the podcast. It is more fun, I can guarantee you that. But without any further ado, I shall go to the Skype machine and see if Dean Treml is ready in Switzerland to take our call. We certainly hope so. And call free on Skype, because technology is amazing. Hello.
Hello.
Dean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I can hear you. This is wonderful. Technology is amazing.
Yeah, it's not too bad, is it?
Dean, how are you this lovely Tuesday afternoon at your end, I have to say, in Switzerland?
Yeah, Tuesday afternoon.
Mm-hmm. How are you?
Yeah,
how are you feeling over there?
Good. Not too bad. I got a good start to the day, so yeah, it's nice to sit down and have a chat.
We were supposed to do this yesterday, but you told me your wife is out on work duty, so you actually have to be at home and take over as a dad.
Yeah, I mean, we're both working photographers, so we have to share the duties from time to time. It's probably a little bit of an unusual situation for a lot of people to get their head around, but yeah, we're both freelance photographers, so you have to be flexible.
Yeah, that is something that I want to get into a little bit later in the podcast, because relationships within the same field are always very interesting to me. I recently had B-Boy Negin on. You know him as well from the Red Bull BC1, and his girlfriend is a dancer as well. So it can be complicated sometimes, but sometimes it's just the perfect match. But before we get into that, Dean, I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, you are one of the first photographers that I got in touch with when I started to shoot for Red Bull. And you are from New Zealand, is that correct?
That is correct.
What brought you over to Switzerland?
Yeah, you know the other freelance photographer I was talking about a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much why.
Yeah, you know, the ladies make you move. They make you crazy in the head. You like New Zealand, and then out of the sudden you go to Switzerland. But did you move to Switzerland directly, or did you have any previous experience with Europe?
I mean, I'd been to Europe a couple of times before, and I actually met Romina, my wife. We were both working at the Melbourne Open, Australian Open tennis.
Yeah.
And that year I spent 3 months working in Europe as well. So we got to know each other, and I was looking to maybe make the move to Europe anyway.
Interesting.
It kind of worked out.
New Zealand is a nice place, though. Why would you like to move from New Zealand?
New Zealand's a great country, but it's so far from everywhere, and you know, you can still do the job to a certain extent, but if you travel to Europe and if you're working a lot in Europe in the Northern Hemisphere, you need to maybe travel up for 2 months at a time to make it viable. Otherwise, flying is just a killer. Yeah,
but you travel to basically all over the world. You're not only in Europe. And may I ask what brought you to traveling? Was it photography, or was it traveling that brought you to photography? Which way was it?
I think photography took me to traveling. I mean, I was always interested in travel and geography. Even at school, it was a subject I enjoyed, but um, they went a little bit hand in hand. But I think photography definitely pushed the button to make it happen more and more.
What were the first steps that you took in photography? Because for a lot of people that is different. For me, it was sports brought me to photography. Have you been into a field or subject before? And what was it that your first photo steps took place with?
I mean, I was playing around with my parents' and grandparents' cameras when I was a little kid, and my mother recognized that I liked this and bought me a camera when I was quite. Then later on, it just kind of developed into something which I got more and more passionate about. It was a hobby. I was spending my pocket money and things, camera and whatnot. So it kind of grew that way. I did a lot of photos at school, and naturally I ended up school sports.
You keep on disappearing a little bit.
That was challenging.
Yeah.
Back in the days of film and manual focus, and I really enjoyed the challenge. So that kind of led me into the sports area.
Did you deal with the work of photography immediately after you left school, or did you do another job before that?
I mean, I left school partway through my final year. I decided, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to pursue what I was going to do, which was marine biology, and I needed to get out and do a bit of mundane work for a while just to clear my head.
Yeah.
So I worked in some factories and driving trucks and things like this for a company, but for maybe a year, in which time I'd already been doing some part-time work for a photography shop, and I continued to do that, and then I decided, okay, there's an availability at a newspaper, and I'll apply for it, and I got the job. So
that is very lucky, because often for people who want to start out in photography, it takes 99 no's and then you get that one yes. So did you have any experience of a disappointment coming at you with emails that said, yeah, sorry, we don't have a spot available for you now? How difficult was that switch into professional photography for you? And what did the people around you say? Because it's not a secure life choice, work choice.
I mean, no, I didn't get any turn downs, because the first job I tried to get, I got. So it's probably a little bit different to a lot. But back then, there wasn't such a large group of people trying to get into photography. Also, for a newspaper, you had to have a certain skill set, and sports photography was one of them. And because I'd spent a lot of time just in my part-time photographing sports, I had a quite an extensive portfolio of sports photographs. So that definitely helped. The newspaper was a really, really good learning ground, because as a well, not a professional, but becoming a professional, you need to get good really quickly at a newspaper. So you have senior photographers there that are telling you what you've done wrong, and they don't let you get away with anything. So it's a great learning ground.
Yeah, and it teaches you the basics as well, because there's not much editing allowed in news photography. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference, what you do today, shooting sports, more editorial style for Red Bull, and shooting news, pure news photography?
Well, back when I started the newspaper, it was black and white film, which we loaded ourselves. We developed the photographs ourselves. We wrote the captions on a typewriter and sellotaped that to the back of the photograph, and then took it up to the editor. Very, very different scenario. Of course, now everything's digital. It's all done on your laptop, and there's the freedom to be able to do almost anything to a photograph if you know your program. The editorial style of photography is one thing, but the integrity that is actually behind that is something which people don't necessarily appreciate. A news photograph has to be true. It has to be accurate. It can't be adjusted to show things that aren't there or to take away things that are there. So Photoshop has to be used minimally. I mean, we're only looking at corrections and contrast and light and color and a few things like this, and cropping of the photograph in a way that enhances the photograph, but not that takes something away that can be misleading. So that's a big thing with editorial news photography. Obviously, Red Bull is well known for its stylized and very, very cool photography, and they have some outstanding photographers working for them that just can produce incredible stuff. There has been a need to kind of point out that there's a difference between news photography and maybe the more stylized photography that they use from time to time. So it's been something which Red Bull has been working on for the last few years, just to make their photographers aware that when they're shooting stuff for news, it has to be factual and can't be played around with too much.
Back to basics. And I have to ask you here because I was doing a internship a while back at the European Press Agency, and we had Barbara on the podcast. And
Right.
unfortunately, I forgot her last name. I'm really bad at names. However, you can go look at our podcast archive. Barbara, episode, I think 32 or 33. And she told us, she's Australian, and she told us about back in time when you were doing news photography and you had to deliver fast. Now, when you were out on an assignment, you had to do all this in your hotel room. Nowadays, you just pick up your laptop and you start editing a little bit. Back in the days, you needed a whole dark chamber basically in your hotel room. Is that something that you still experience?
I mean, that's something that I actually went through, sure. I mean, we traveled and we had to be able to develop our film on the spot if you couldn't find a shop that was open to do it for you. I mean, black and white developing was fairly simple.
Yeah.
Once you went to color and the C41 process, it became a little trickier. So, for example, in 2000, I traveled to Europe and Japan with the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, for I think it was 5 weeks. Along with all the camera gear, I also had to take chemicals for developing film, a film scanner, and that was all set up so that you could develop in your hotel room, as she says, and scan the negatives and then transmit them back to whoever wants them. So much more time-consuming process.
How easy was that to travel with all those chemicals? Because nowadays, I mean, you need a passport, obviously. You cannot go anywhere just without a passport unless you live in Europe. But if you have chemicals with you, that must be a hustle at the airport, I can imagine.
It wasn't an issue at all. What was more of an issue was trying to take everything onto a plane, because you have all your camera gear, you have a film scanner, which is very sensitive to damage, and lenses like a 400 2.8, which is big and heavy. So trying to convince them to let you on the plane with all this equipment as carry-on, that was a bit of a hiccup. But the chemicals didn't have a problem.
Yeah, you have to smuggle your photo gear on the airplane sometimes. I recognize that feeling. Even it's way above the allowed weight, you still try to move around it. And so far, I didn't have any problems. I have a couple of friends. They always tell me about some horror scenarios about their travel stories with photo equipment. But so far, I knock on wood, nothing had happened to me. But let's get back to news photography and then Red Bull photography. How did you make that jump from news photography to Red Bull?
I'd been overseas for 5 years, and I came back to New Zealand and started working for a sports agency there. In the time that I've been away, I'd done a lot of different things, weddings and portraits and commercial work, and as well as sports and news as well. So when I came back, I just knocked straight into the sport area. The people that were setting up Red Bull in New Zealand had seen a lot of my work in newspapers and magazines and things, and approached me.
Oh, interesting.
Back in '99, and said, we think that your style would be a good fit for our company, and asked me to do a couple of jobs, and that just continued from there.
Well, I'm a big fan of your style, especially your white and black and white photography. But you say 99 here, and I don't want to attack you personally, but I have to ask you, how old are you?
51.
51. And you started photography basically since, childhood, teenager, ever since you got that camera. So you have been...
I mean, I started my first full-time job when I was 20.
So that is very interesting. You have been sticking with it for a very, very long time. And I'm 32 at the moment. And when I started photography, there was loads of struggle with actually getting out there, because there's a lot of people who try to get into that position that you are in today, or also had the possibility to get quickly when you were younger. How's the competition in New Zealand? I don't know much about the New Zealand media scene, photographers, videographers. Is there a lot of competition going on?
Yeah, there is actually. I mean, I haven't lived there now for nearly 10 years, but it's always been very good at producing good photographers. A lot of New Zealand photographers immigrate and move overseas and end up working. There's a few working in England and Australia and all over the place. So the photographers that are there, they're very good. So you have to be good as well to try and get your foot in the door. And it's not a small country. New Zealand is physically about the same size as Italy, but it's a much smaller population. There has a lot less happening there, and international things happen very occasionally because it's such a difficult place to come to.
Yeah.
So the amount of global work or work of global interest is quite small. So there's less work there than you would have, say, in obviously the USA or in even Hong Kong, like that probably. But,
yeah. Did that bring a lot of pressure with you, that you kind of had the feeling, I need to get out in order to make it on a bigger scale?
It was kind of, no, not really. I mean, I was working for the French press agency, AFP, in New Zealand. I was their main photographer there, and as well as that, I was doing additional work for Getty Images. So I was kind of sharing the load between two agencies.
Yeah.
I had a good regular work, plus I had a few commercial clients and other things. It was necessary just to do little 1-2 hour jobs here and there just to kind of help things along, because the big jobs weren't that frequent. But no, it was fine. The travel aspect of it was, moving to Europe was more due to the fact that my father was from Austria.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
He was adopted by an Austrian family, but he was half Hungarian and half German. So
so there's a little German in you.
Yeah, there's a little German in me. And
do you speak German?
And ein bisschen, aber nicht so gut.
I think that sounded very well.
But yeah, the desire was there to get to Europe and see sort of where my father had come from and experience life in Europe and sort of make a break out of living down under. So that was the main impetus to get out and have a look around more than the work. But I suspected that there was a lot more work available in a small area compared to.
Do you ever look back? Because I do that sometimes. I mainly work here in Asia nowadays, and when I look back, sometimes when I have a quiet moment, I sometimes think, when I was younger, I always wanted to do this, and then you realize you're actually doing this. Are you looking back at the beginnings of your career, where you started and where you are today?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm very much a now kind of a person. I mean, I'm not even thinking about tomorrow yet, but it's just the way I am, and I don't like to dwell on the past a great deal. But yeah, certain things do pop to mind. When I was 17, 18, and I've always been a car person, I was always interested in photographing the 24-hour of Le Mans. I thought it would be a huge test of yourself, of your ability, plus the changing conditions and everything.
Yeah,
very interesting. And 2 years ago, I did it. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. Other jobs always got in the way, but I decided I'm going to take the time and I'm going to shoot this. And if anything else crops up, then it's just too bad.
Yeah, and once again, I have to drop in here shortly, because you mentioned the 24-hour of Le Mans there, and I think that is some of the work that I like the most of you. Once again, the black and white photography from not only the track, but also from the inbox, from, what do you call it in English? Hashtag not a native English speaker, the box.
Yeah, the garage or the pits.
Yeah, I think you just, it feels like you are really there when I look at your photos. I like that. That is something that I always try to translate to my pictures, because it kind of puts you in the situation. You're very, very close.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I like the black and white because it cuts the distractions and it lets you see what it is that I'm seeing much easier.
Yeah, and yeah.
I was going to say, you don't have the colors getting in the way. And the other thing is that while I enjoy motorsports, and all sports for that matter, what I enjoy most is the human element, you know. So with motorsport, you see a car going around the track, and it can be interesting if you can find the right light conditions, but otherwise the photos can look very generic. Whereas the people that are involved, particularly the mechanics and the people that you don't normally see other than the drivers, there's a whole world happening behind the scenes that no one knows about. And I was more interested in documenting this aspect of the motorsport rather than purely the cars going around the track.
Now, how easy is that? Because as a client, obviously, you want to have the main action. You want to have the car, you want to have the driver. How easy is that for you to actually put the whole story into your pictures and then get those pictures published so people actually can see and start to understand that there is more to racing than just one person behind the wheel?
Yeah, you have to spread your time quite wisely, because 24-hour race sounds like a long time, and you have 3 or 4 days before that for practicing and qualifications and things. But the 24 hours actually goes quite quickly, and you need to grab 2 or 3 hours sleep as well. So it's challenging from this. You have to map out when you plan to be on track, when you plan to be in the garage, and all these kind of things. So that aspect of it is a little bit tricky. But I mean, I was really lucky because going through Red Bull, we got in touch with the Porsche LMP1 team, who had 3 drivers branded with Treml, Brendan Hartley, Mark Webber, and Neil Yarney. So they were able to make the access possible for me so that I could spend time in the garage. I didn't want to just go to Le Mans 24-hour race and say, hey, I'm here, guys, work with me. So I made a point of going to the races before that, Silverstone and Spa, so that they had a chance to see how I worked, see what kind of photos I produced, so that when the 24-hour race came around, they were comfortable with me being there and they knew that I wasn't a threat or an idiot or anything like that. So I know that was beneficial.
Yeah, I know exactly what you are talking about. I just want to apologize shortly because there's a little delay. So sometimes I keep on interrupting you. That is, I apologize for that in case that happens. But something you mentioned here, which I find is really interesting, you literally need to show the people that they can trust you and that you can trust those people, that they kind of let you in these moments that a few people only see only. And I think a lot of people who start photography, they underestimate how much previous work goes into actually shooting true content. I hate the word content, but it's what describes it best. You need to get warm with your subject. So if you have a day of a Red Bull shoot, for example, for cliff diving. Now I know when there's a stop for the World Cliff Diving Series that you travel with them for a couple of days, again training and so on and so on. But what does your preparation look like on shooting day?
Cliff diving's probably not the best example because I've been doing it since the series started in 2009 and it becomes almost automatic. I mean, all the divers that are there I've known for a number of years. It's a really good, easygoing group of people. So working with them is pretty straightforward. There's some basic rules that we put forward for ourselves and for when we have other photographers coming along to say, on the event day, during training sessions, stay off the platform, leave the divers alone. They don't mind myself or Ramina on the platform because they know us all the time and they're quite happy to say, look, can you go off the platform? I'm not comfortable at the moment, and we'll go clearly. But the preparation is all done in the days leading up to that, particularly at a new location where you spend the first day just moving around and looking at possible angles and locations and what lenses work here and there and things like that. And for me, it's very much I hate to say it, organic kind of process. I'm not overly thinking. I'm walking around and looking and seeing, and when I see, I stop and check it out. So.
I guess you kind of know what circle to move in, because when you shoot the same thing over and over, I do that here with mixed martial arts. When you shoot the event, it kind of becomes a habit. But once in a while, you get that one shot in there that sticks out from the other ones, where it's just about the right timing, the right light, and the right person doing and performing whatever they are performing. And something which is a perfect gateway now, because you mentioned it before. Your wife is shooting the same event. Cons and pros of working on event with your wife. Do you have sometimes conflicts about, hey, I want to have that picture, and no, I'm going to have that picture, or you just smooth as silk and work along as the perfect team?
I have no complaints.
You had to say that in case your wife listens.
I'm saying that she's probably upstairs listening. But no, actually, quite seriously, the idea of working with your partner is something that sounds really dodgy, but it's worked pretty good. We're both fairly relaxed people, and we don't kind of step on each other's toes at all. We approach it as a team. I mean, when I switch into work mode, I'm a kind of different person to how I am normally with in my relationship. So I'm very focused on the job, but at the same time, I'm not super uptight about getting something specific. When we have ourselves and maybe one or two additional photographers, because often the home country might bring one or two extra photographers along. I always give them the opportunity to tell me what it is that they want to shoot. Yeah. And when everyone decides what they want to shoot, then I'll take whatever's left over. I might have a couple of angles that I want to get at some point, but basically I'm happy to walk around and look for the places that the other people don't want to go to, because it again, for me, it creates more of a challenge to come up with something. Yeah. So from this regard, I'm not too egotistical about sort of being the one that gets the shot. And I always say to people, we're a team and we have to produce a result for the client. We don't have to produce a result for ourselves individually. So for me, it's important that everyone works like this and doesn't try and take something away from the other photographer. There's nothing worse in my mind than photographers trying to poach other ideas and things. That's why I'm not a big fan of press photographers, I have to be honest, because I was quite interested in getting into the whole press and news photography, because you get really close to very interesting subjects. But when it comes to sport... I remember you asking me about that a few years ago.
Yeah, when it comes to sport, it really, you need elbows and knees, man. That's all you need, because when you have the press photographers there, everybody wants that certain shot of that person lifting the trophy. Yeah, that's what people want, and sometimes that can be quite a pain in the ass. And I like the aspect that you actually like to walk around and work with what you have and try to make the best out of it. And talking about that, you have been working with Red Bull for so long now, and you have been doing so many different events. Do you have any goals left of what you would like to shoot for Red Bull?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, I like variety. I like different things. There's no one thing that sort of sticks out in my mind that I say, hey, I really want to shoot this. Sometimes someone will suggest something and I'll go, yeah, that sounds great. In the same way that the 24-hour Le Mans was appealing to me when I was young, the other thing that I always liked the idea of was the Paris-Dakar race. Which is happening right now. But of course, it's not Paris-Dakar anymore. Something about the fact that it's now in South America, it doesn't appeal to me as much as when it used to be a European and African-based race. So
interesting.
It's something that I'd kind of be interested in, I guess. But I think back to a lot of the old photos that I used to see growing up, the old black and whites, the old motor racing photos, the old rugby photos and things that happened in much more open scenarios and grounds and whatnot, where you had much more access than you do today. And everything looked a lot more interesting, you know. So mainstream sports and things like this is something that I kind of purposely moved away from, because it's just, like you say, the press, so many photographers shooting things, it's so hard to get something a little bit different. I mean, when I was working for AFP, they were great, because they used to say to me, you'll never lose your job for trying to do something different, because if the Reuters and the AP and the Getty photographer were standing side by side, which was often the case, I'd go in the opposite direction just so at least I could try to get something different.
Yeah,
so
that is a golden point.
That's always been my approach, you know. So I don't want to have what everyone else does. When I was shooting the Olympics, our team all wanted to shoot the 100 meters. I said, I don't want to be, because there's 200 photographers jammed into the same spot with the same lens shooting the same guy crossing the finishing line. So, you know, it's not a great achievement, this photograph. It's a huge moment which is recognized internationally, but for me it doesn't make a great photo per se, because everybody else has got it as well.
But so, it's easier to say these kind of things now. I totally agree with you 100%. But in the beginning, when you start as a photographer, you kind of want that one shot that is definitely gonna land in the press. So it's a fine line. As you mentioned earlier, you really have to make important decisions as a newcomer photographer. What shot are you gonna go for? You must be ready for the consequences. Maybe you fuck up because there's somebody in the way, and maybe you get lucky because you have that perfect shot straight from the front, 100 meters. Who knows what's going to happen?
Oh yeah, there is a degree of luck and good management, and these things happen for sure.
Yeah. So
for new people coming into photography too, and if they're getting to go to larger events with more famous athletes, there can be a degree of you know, fan worship, you know, fanboy kind of behavior. And if someone's standing there next to someone well known, oh wow, Roger Federer, oh my god, and they can be overawed with the experience rather than concentrating on trying to take the photographs. So this is a big, you know, I think it's cool to meet famous people and work with them, but at the end of the day, you're the photographer trying to do your job, they're the sports person doing their job, and you kind of have to just let it flow and be something that you create from what's available.
Yeah, that is a mistake. That is a mistake that I did early in my career when I had VIPs or famous athletes. I was not starstruck, but I always tried to figure out the right way how to approach them. And then before I knew it, it was too late, because these people are often very busy. So you kind of just need to get in there. Yeah. You need to get with the flow and just do it.
I mean, it's one of the things that I've always done. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of setup photographs. I prefer photojournalistic style photography, but I'm happy to set photos if I need to. But I like to do it super quick, already have an idea in my head as to what I want. And in the time that I have, I can get out one, maybe two different photographs, but I'm just looking for one, really. Yeah. And it's paid dividends over the years, because you keep running into the same sports people or whatever. And if you say to them, hey, I just need you for 2 minutes for a photograph, and you only take 2 minutes or a minute and a half, they remember that. And the next time you roll around, you go, hey, can I grab you for a couple of minutes? They'll go, yeah, sure. So I've ended up with quite a few people that have repeatedly done shots for me back when I was living in New Zealand, especially, who often didn't want to go and do things with other photographers, because as soon as they had the opportunity to spend some time with someone like this, they just messed it up. So you have to be quick.
Yeah, it brings us back to what you said earlier. You need to stick around a couple of days earlier to actually build a relationship to your subject, because it is really needed. It's not something that you do because of joy. Obviously, it's fun to get into a new culture like skateboarding, racing, or whatever it is, but it's a lot of preparation work, and I think a lot of people underestimate that. And a lot of people, when I started working here with a fighting event, one championship in Southeast Asia, they were looking a little bit weird at me because I was hanging around in the arena way before I had to be there. And they were just wondering, what is this weird German dude doing here? But I was making notes, I was observing people, how they move, and that is another interesting part of photography. There is so much more to it. And talking about so much more to it, there is a question on my mind that has been burning on my mind to ask you ever since I asked you to come on the podcast, because I know a lot of video guys, I know a lot of photography guys who come from the breakdance direction, because that is where I started. I was a former dancer, then I got into dancing. From dancing, I got into Red Bull, and so on. Now, you are the opposite. You had nothing to do with dancing, as far as I know. I don't know if you ever took any ballet classes before, but
look, after a few drinks, definitely dancing is possible.
But how was it to deal with dance, break dance? Because you have the Red Bull BC1. I was talking to Treml van der Meer, who is working with the IBE, and how important it is for him to bring good photographers to breakdance events. How was it for you to realize what is going on here? It's so fast, there is not a lot of light available. How was your introduction to the Red Bull BC1 world?
Paris 2008 for the Red Bull BC1 final was my first event. And I've done every BC1 final since then, except the following year, 2009, when I had something else already booked. Mm-hmm. The first one in Paris was interesting. It was in a small, dark little room. Like you say, light was challenging. I'm a by choice natural light photographer. I prefer to use natural light. I like to travel light and not have to worry about setting things up, so that I can work quicker and with less issues. Mm-hmm. So I was there along with Ray Dembski and another local photographer whose name I don't recall.
I think it was Little Shao back then.
No, it wasn't Little Shao. No.
Homer Payette?
No, that doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, somebody,
yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting because these guys had photographed this before I hadn't touched it. Ray was setting up strobes and things around the stadium and whatnot, and I just was shooting natural light. So I found it really interesting. I mean, it's fast moving. If you don't know breakdancing, you don't know what's going on initially. You can watch training sessions and things and get a feel for it, but you don't know what they're doing and when they're going to do it. For me, anyway, and slowly you start to get a feel for it. And if you photograph the same B-boys or B-girls enough, you kind of start to see their moves and you get these tells and you go, okay, they're going to do this power move now because I know what they're setting up for. So you're kind of aware of it. But I think from outside the scene, it's really hard to understand when's a good time to push the button. So it becomes a little bit instinctive and intuitive, and sadly, a little bit machine gun type of approach which I hate, but you kind of have to keep your finger on the button now and again and try and get that shot. But a BC1 World Final is a hell of a thing afterwards, because it's probably the thing that I shoot the most photographs in the shortest period of time.
Yeah, there's so many pictures. It took me a while. I was starting off with a Nikon D3 when I started to shoot breaking. Nowadays, I have a D4, but I'm shooting mostly with a D800 because I want to force myself back into actually finding that moment instead of just holding the button down. That's something that I started with, but as further I go in my career, as more I want to leave that behind. I really want to challenge myself. I want to find that perfect moment. And sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't get it. That's part of photography, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's for me, I like this frame rate of a camera so that I can get 2 quick shots, not like 20 shots in 2 seconds. So it's more like click, 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 rather than brrr.
Yeah. Do you prefer certain lenses for b-boying? Because obviously you mentioned it, the light is very difficult. What are your favorite lenses to shoot b-boying? Because for me, always a favorite is the 24-70 because it allows you the portrait and a little bit of zoom and fisheye. But for fisheye, you have to be really close. But for celebration shots, in my opinion, there's nothing better than a fisheye because you can be so close.
Yeah, with the fisheye for celebration is fine if you don't mind getting in everyone else's way. Coming back to relationships and things, obviously with something like BC1, we're working as a team. There's other photographers, there's TV crews. So the last thing I'm going to do is run in there with a fisheye and block everyone else's shot. But yeah, it can make a very dramatic image. With regards to what lenses, I mean, I don't use 24-70 or 7200. I'm shooting prime lenses in that area, so it gives me an extra couple of stops on a 2.8. So mostly with a 24 and a 50 around the stage and back a little bit are the two main lenses I would be using, and then a 135 and a 200 if I go back into the crowd.
Yeah.
And that's it. I find something like a fisheye, if you're next to the stage, is generally speaking far too wide. And with b-boying, with the one-on-one format of the BC1, I want to, wherever possible, show at least a part of the other dancer. So I don't want to show one guy. I want to show that there's two of them and they're competing against each other. Yeah. So you need to be wide enough often enough that you can do that, but you also have to move around so that it's not a huge space in between the two of them. So
yeah, and obviously you wear several cameras at the same time, so you don't have to switch in between. For the people who don't like photography, or yeah, the photographers often, that's the reason why we have many cameras, so we actually don't need to switch lenses in between the action, because they obviously would miss out on a lot of stuff. I have to ask you.
Exactly, and I mean, it's far more critical if you're using primes. I mean, if you're using a 24-70, you've got a sort of reasonable coverage range. If you're shooting with one lens and it's a 24 and suddenly you need a 50 or an 85, then the photo's gone by the time you change lenses. So yeah, definitely two.
But still you have those moments, at least for me in fighting, where you're using, I don't know, a telelens to shoot through the cage, and then you realize that would have been such a better picture if I would have had the other lens. Does it happen a lot to you that you regret that you didn't choose the other lens instead of the one you were using?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a passing thing. It's not something where I beat myself up about it, but you'll be there and you maybe have your 50 on, and suddenly they come really close and do something, and you're like, shit, wrong, but it's too late. So you just move on. I mean, it's like anything. It's like looking at the photos afterwards and seeing it's out of focus. I just delete it and move on. It's no point dwelling on what might have been a good photograph. Yeah, it's what you have. It's not what you missed.
Yeah, that is your experience. I have that sometimes. I'm very competitive against myself. I always want to get the best photo. And you were talking about the fisheye and getting close and in the way of other photographers and the TV crews. And I was shooting the Red Bull King of the Rock in final in Germany. I think that was 2010 or 2011. And there was one player, he was in the finals and he had a lot of support with him. So I knew if he is going to win, there's going to be a lot of real celebration, people going nuts. So I decided to put my fisheye on and then just get as fast as possible, as close as possible. And you can see that in the event trailer, how I actually get knocked over by all the supporters from the player. But it was worth it. I got the shot.
I mean, it's the same with things like the BC1. I mean, we'll decide where everyone's going to be. The team that's shooting it is going to be for the final, so that we can cover the celebration and then the prize giving. Yeah. And what I tell everyone is, like, once the presentation happens, usually half the b-boys and some of the crowd jump on the stage and they start celebrating. When that happens and the TV crews and the others go on the stage, yeah, go for it. Whoever's closest, get in there with the fisheye. If it's clean, stay back. Don't go on the stage if no one else gets on the stage. So it stays clean for everyone. So yeah, you can jump in and you can get a great shot, but at the same time you can be an asshole. So you know, when you're with people all the time and someone's having a moment on the stage by themselves and you come and jam a fisheye in their face, it's not cool.
It's not cool at all.
You know, if they're celebrating in a big group and things like this and you're there with a fisheye, fantastic, and make some great.
Yeah, that's basically one of the podcast rules that we have. Just don't be a dick in your work, in life in general. Just don't be a cunt. That is the golden rule of life. But yeah, all this fascinating subject that you talk about, racing, tennis, and then you have news and breaking. It sounds all very fun, and I can imagine it is at certain times. But there's always something that comes with it that a lot of people don't see, and that is post-production. That is deadlines and the time after the event. How far on a scale of popularity is the post-production part, the deadline part, on your fun level from 1 to 10? How much do you enjoy that?
I enjoy it. I mean, it's part of the whole deal. I mean, when you pick up the camera, you know you're going to have to download, edit, caption, send, and do that kind of thing. Plus, it gives you the chance to look at your photos. I'm not looking at my photos while I'm shooting a great deal. If I take a couple of shots and I know that they were out of focus, I might delete them if I have the chance. But otherwise, I'm looking at them when I finish. So then you kind of see if you've stuffed up or if you've done okay. It's kind of an enjoyable part of the process for me. yeah, it can take a long time. I mean, if something like BC1 World Final, for example, or a Red Bull cliff diving event, you'd be 5 to 6 hours after the event working. So if it finishes at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll be there till midnight. There's a lot of it, you know, you've got not just the photos for Red Bull, you've got to do things in different sizes. So there's stuff for the press release, there's stuff for the website, there's the high-res ones that have to go to the content pool.
Yeah.
Then in my case, I'm also supplying handouts to Getty Images and AFP and whatnot. So they have to be done in a specific size and with a different caption format. So they have to be rewritten in a way that it goes straight into the other, like the Getty Images system and things like this.
Yeah.
As well as talking to the desk via email and just making sure they're getting everything and whatnot. So there's a little bit involved, but again, I've been doing this for a long time and it's what the job involves. So for me, I don't love it, but I enjoy it. It's when you have to sit down 2 days after the event and do a second edit because you know you didn't finish the whole lot or you've got some more to do.
Yeah, because you have people in your bag telling you, Dean, we need this winning shot. Dean, we need this shot of participant number 3. It's very stressful sometimes.
That's the thing. It's like, okay, we needed a photograph of all these people. We need one of everyone. We need this. We need that. So you're back at home. You're chilling. It's a nice day outside. You can smell the meat on the barbecue. You can feel that cold beer, but, you know, you got to sit there and work. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that, my dear friends, colleagues, by the way, who are listening, and I know you always blame me for that, but that's the reason why we photographers often make it to the after show party, because we actually have work to do after the show. So yeah, it's after show parties is something that I heard about, but I never experienced them. So it's kind of a myth for me. I don't know how that is for you.
Very rarely do you get to them. I mean, now and again, it's possible. Quite often, though, by the time you get there, everyone is so far gone that you have to start sculling Patron or something in order to try and catch up, or you just go and find a quiet corner somewhere and have a chat with your colleagues. But they can be okay. It depends on the event. If you do something like X Fighters, that's just a madhouse. It's best just to stay away. You know?
I always wanted to shoot X Fighters. For the people who don't know, it's a huge motocross trick event, jumping motorbikes and backflips, and they have crazy locations. And that's always an event that I always wanted to shoot. I always wanted to get that one stadium overview shot with all the fireworks, the motocross just doing a backflip. Yeah, but never really happened. I did cliff diving in Hamburg. That's where we met for the first time. I was out there with Ray Dembski. That was in 2008 or 9. I don't really remember. Yeah, there's so much stuff to take pictures of. I find it interesting to realize you shoot one sport, and once again, I don't know how that is for your end, but I came from b-boying, then I got into skating, cliff diving, fighting, and several other subjects. But it seems to me that every sport has its own kind of lifestyle, its own kind of culture. Everybody has the same goal, but the paths are very, very different from each other.
No, this is true. I mean, and it's not just, it's the lifestyle, and it's also the attitudes and things that are attached to it. I mean, once you get into the professional field sports like football and rugby and tennis, I mean, the characters of the people can be so different to something like skateboarding or b-boying or cliff diving. I mean, the cliff diving is such a small elite group of people. There's not many people doing it. They're doing something which is quite dangerous, and they have a mutual respect for one another. No one wants to see anyone else get hurt. Of course, they're wishing each other the best prior to competitions and things. They're very laid back. They like to have a drink. They're all good-natured guys. Conversely, you can go and ask a footballer for a photograph, and they'll tell you to fuck off. You know, so yeah, there's so many different attitudes and different things about people. You know, I understand that some athletes just aren't that way orientated. They don't like dealing with the media and things because they've had bad experiences, or they're just shy and they just hide it with an arrogance. But yeah, it's different from sport to sport for sure. Yeah,
and a lot of athletes, by the way, also underestimate the importance of pictures and footage or content, once again, because that is what makes the event or the athlete nowadays. Social media, Instagram, Facebook. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but I have, of course, to ask you the question as a photographer, how much do you enjoy social media, Facebook and Instagram? I see you post a lot of pictures on your Instagram. And by the way, for the people who are listening who want to follow Dean and his work, work, we have all the social media links for Facebook and Instagram in the description below, so you can just go there and click, and your website as well. So if you want to see what Dean actually does, if you want to see it visual, because we're only recording audio, then do yourself a favor, click on the links and check out the amazing work of Dean Treml. So see how smooth I built that in our conversation. Little marketing.
Thanks,
there
man.
for you,
that was so natural.
No problem.
I was waiting for the and now you'll get a free set of steak knives if you sign up.
I could do that because our second sponsor, the Indigo Float Center here in Phuket, is giving out 2 free floats a month. But we're gonna get into that a little bit more towards the end of the month, because it has been a very busy month. I came straight from a shooting into the office today to record this podcast, so everything at the right time. So you have to listen to not only this episode but also all the other episodes. And you see, now I lost my questions because we were drifting off into sponsorships. We were talking about
social media.
Social media, yeah. How do you deal with social media? Do you enjoy it? Because Instagram has a lot of filters, of course. I'm not a big fan, but somehow I also enjoy it. It's kind of a hate-love relationship with Instagram. What is your opinion on social media?
Social media in general is very much a hate-love. I kind of use Instagram now as my portfolio. I'm sticking up photos every day or two. If I'm working on a job, I'll generally put up photos while I'm doing the job. One a day is usually my maximum. And otherwise, I'm just pulling stuff out from here and there and just putting it up so it's there. It's kind of, I have a website, but I don't think the website is such a valid thing anymore as like this. You know, I mean, you have to have one as a professional, but it's kind of not utilized. In all my years of having a website, I've never had a job that's paid me money as a result of having a website.
Yeah, I hear you on that one, but you kind of remind me of Marcel Lemmerhard at the moment, because he always was like, yeah, I'm going to get my website done. Yes, I'm going to get my website done. I actually don't know if he got his website done.
No idea. But I mean, conversely, Instagram, which I've only really been rocking for about 3 years now, I've had a couple of jobs come out of that, no problem, and clients and things. So,
interesting.
It's actually been more beneficial in a couple of years than websites have in 15 or 20 years. So
yeah. So how do you deal with your Instagram? Do you take pictures with your phone, or do you do you publish pictures that you take with your camera?
Yeah, they're mostly photos I've taken with my camera. There is the occasional one in there with my phone. But it's mostly camera. It's generally how it is when it comes off my computer. Now and then, sometimes when you drop it on the phone, it might be flat because it's a photo which is a bit smaller in detail, so I might punch it up a little bit in the editing gear on the camera. But occasionally, I'll just touch a filter and see if it looks any good. But I don't want to.
Occasionally, you sounded very apologizing there.
Yeah, I am. I feel like a fraud. But it's kind of like, okay, well, this punches it up just enough so that if someone's looking at it on a little 4-inch screen or something, it kind of is a bit more visible.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's not. I don't get too carried away with it. I try and keep it as much as how I edited it in the first place.
Yeah, sometimes it is frustrating though, because something that will always get more likes than the best photography work that you put out there. It could be the most amazing shot that you have been taking in your life, something that always gets more likes than anything else. Selfies, food picture, and puppies.
Yeah, yes, things I don't photograph. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't go there. I do notice that, you have. I mean, my followings are just organic. I've just let the thing grow. I haven't bothered to try and get additional followers or anything. So it's interesting. I think I have around 3,500, and I can get anywhere between 50 and 300 likes on a photograph. So yeah, it's kind of a 5% and below average. If it's a spectacular cliff diving photograph or something like this, it could easily be 250 likes. If it's a really cool, something I like, a human interaction photograph, 2 people, a moment, something like this, it might get 40 or 50. Yeah. So the people that are viewing it are definitely looking at it from an instant wow factor. They want something that they see straight away and go, oh, cool, like, and move on. One of the things with social media that irks me somewhat is how much value people put on the like. I mean, it's a figure which is not quantifiable, and it can also be purchased. You can buy likes. So it's something which I have a little bit of a problem with, because I don't think it's such a valid way to calculate the worth of something, but it's how we today. This is how things are working, so we have to go with the flow.
Yeah, so would you consider yourself a digital person? I mean, you had to move from film to a digital camera. Are you somebody who embraces that and takes all the benefits that it can bring with it for a photographer, or you try to avoid it?
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a total dinosaur. I mean, I still like the basics of photography, and this is why I continue to work the way I do. I don't embrace every new fad that comes out, because I think my point of difference is doing things the way they always have been done, rather than jumping on HDR, jumping on sequences, jumping on drone photography, whatever. It's not for me. I kind of, over the years, I've photographed so many different genres and subjects that I know what I like to do. I know the equipment I like to use. And I don't know what I want to show, so I'm happy with that. And as long as my clients are happy with me working this way, I think we have a good symbiosis going on. I'm very hesitant to kind of jump on new things unless I feel like it's something that is really beneficial for some purpose.
Yeah, and to slowly bring this podcast to an end, because we have been recording for almost an hour, I want to ask you a question, and if it's too personal, just tell me and we move on. But you as a father now, and as a photographer, or as a photography couple, do you feel that you have a certain responsibility to not take pictures of your kid and then like to put them online? Because that is what a lot of parents like to do, but I think they forget a little bit the fact that they don't really give the kid a choice to be digital or not. Do you struggle with that, or has it been clear from the beginning, no, we're not going to do that?
It's not something we've really discussed. I think both of us, again, we're on the same page with so many things. I mean, we do have a few photographs of our son online on Facebook and things. We have I have my page limited to when I put family photos up, only friends are going to see them, so it's not available to anyone. Obviously, your profile photo is a little bit different, but you know, if it's a photo of me and my boy, which is currently my profile photo, so be it. He's my son. I love him. I'm very proud of him. He's a cool little guy, so I'm happy for my friends and other people to see that. There are a couple of photos of him on Facebook, but generally speaking, they're actually shot from behind, or they show an interaction with something, which could be any kid. So it's more of a photograph interest than that's my son interest. So we're not chucking a photograph. I mean, we're not those parents that want to put photos up of our kids or our meals or our puppies every 5 minutes, which is often the case. So his exposure is somewhat limited. It's not purposely kept to a minimum, but we don't want to oversaturate people with photos of our kid.
Yeah, I think that is a healthy balance you need to find. Like with everything in life, everything needs to be a certain balance. Too much alcohol is bad. A beer here or there is quite enjoyable. But how much change was it for you to actually become a dad? Because as a freelance photographer, you're out there, you travel a lot, you can dedicate your work and your life completely to your clients. It must be a big change of suddenly becoming a parent and not being able to use that freedom maybe as you used to do.
Oh, absolutely. It impacts, having a child impacts big time. I mean, I've got two children from many years ago. They're both they're 29 and 30 now. So I had kids when I was quite young. And yeah, sure, it impacts on the way you work. In the last 10 years, 15 years, I've had a lot more freedom to be able to do what I want. Without this, now I'm back with the child, and it's not something which is a negative. The experiences and the times we spend with him, something completely different, and you can't put a price on it. Yeah. You just have to change your expectations. And I mean, if you want to have a child and you want to keep working, then you have to realize that something is going to be a little bit different. If not, it's being a little bit naive. So it's just working together and finding that balance. And again, because we work together quite happily, and it's one of the amazing things about working with someone who has the same career, actually. I mean, I've previously had relationships where the other person is resentful of you doing the job you want. The job you do. I mean, originally they found it really cool, but then they hate the fact that you're flying away doing these things because they don't get to do it.
Amen. I hear in that. I just had that issue in the past relationship. Exactly the same. It sounds cool in the beginning of photographer, but then they realize you actually have to go to your work often, and the work doesn't come to you. So they realize it's not as cool as it sounds sometimes. Yeah,
if they're sitting in an office, 9 to 5, 7 days, 5 days a week, and you're off traveling and doing this, they can get resentful, and this has happened to me in the past. With Romina, if she's off doing a job or I'm off doing a job, we know what we're doing,
Yeah.
And even to the point, it's like, okay, well, the job was just in Zurich. It's only a 1 hour drive home, but I'm stopping off with so-and-so to have a beer before I come home because it was, whatever, we'll see you when you get here kind of thing. So there's no issue with this kind of thing at all. So it makes doing the job easier. You don't have to consider the other person to the same degree that you might.
Yeah, there's a lot more understanding coming with it, of course. Yeah. Or unless you basically put thousands of cameras into the bed of your kid from the very beginning and force your kid to be a photographer. Is that something that you would do to suggest to your kids, hey, listen, whatever you do in life, don't worry about it, just become a photographer. It is amazing. Or because again, we mentioned it in a relationship, a lot of people think it sounds awesome as a photographer. Of course, your kids at some point come to that stage where they realize, hey, photographer, it's a unique job and it sounds like a cool job. Is that something that you push on your kids, or do you let them discover that by themselves? And is any of your kids as much into photography as you are?
Absolutely not for pushing kids. I mean, I'm a firm believer in letting the kids be kids. I don't want my kids to grow up too quickly and force them into a education or a learning process which takes away their childhood. I want them to grow up as they are and discover what it is that makes them the kid that wants to do such and such a job. My two younger children, older children, they both never had a real interest in photography. They'd pick up a camera and go click every now and again. But in recent years, my son sort of got himself a DSLR and a lens, and he sort of takes a few photos here and there and whatnot.
Nice.
But he's not doing it with any degree of seriousness.
Is it difficult for you though to sometimes say, hey, wait a second, you should try a different aperture on that picture? Because that's that's something that I can see myself doing at one point in my life. I always try to get people to do the best of their capabilities.
If someone asks me, I'm happy to help. If they don't ask me, I leave them alone. Photography is so different and so subjective for everyone. It's if you enter photography competitions, you find that out. What someone finds amazing, someone else might find really banal and uninteresting. So it's the same with photography. A lot of people are out there, they take shots for themselves and they post them online maybe, and they go, well, I'm really happy with that. And I can look at that's a terrible photograph, but I'm not going to tell you because you aren't asking me for advice. And why would I impose my thoughts on you, because my thoughts might be wrong as far as I'm concerned. So I'm always very open and happy to talk to people about photography if they approach me about it. But if they don't, then I just let them do what they want to do.
Well, we certainly do appreciate your time to come on the podcast and to talk to us about a little bit about your career, how you view photography and everything that is involved with it. And as I said, time goes by so fast when you record a podcast and have fun. And unfortunately, as we say in Germany, alles hat ein Ende, nur die Wurst hat zwei. Everything has an end except for the sausage. It has two. I have to ask you two last questions here before I let you go. First, what has photography taught you for your life? What can you translate from photography into life? And what would you give kind of your last sentence on this interview to people who would like to become a photographer? What is most important, and what should you absolutely not do?
Yeah, tricky. I don't know. I mean, I guess, I'm just trying to think. These are almost two things that kind of can roll into one. I think if you're really an uptight person and you get easily stressed out and things like this, photography maybe is not for you. The coolest photographers, the ones that work in the best situations, are always ones that are really laid back, quick with a joke. They can joke around and still take a great photo at the same time and not get too worried about things. This is because they're prepared mentally, and they're prepared from an equipment and a photography skill perspective. They don't have to think, oh, should I be setting this? Do I need a flash? Do I need to change lenses? Should I ask him to stand this way? Am I standing in the right place? They instinctively know that they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing the right thing at least, so they can get on with the job.
Yeah.
it's the same with life, I think. And I mean, you know, if you take life in this kind of same way, that you're prepared for most situations, and when things go wrong, you can have a laugh and just move on. I mean, it's one of my creeds, if you like, is just to say it's only a problem when you make it a problem.
That is very true.
And that's very much how I live my life. And it's to worry about something happening before it happens is pointless and just is a waste of your mental capacity.
I totally agree, and it is not surprising to my audience that also in this episode the conversation brought me to your fuck budget in life. I recently had a podcast with Sarah Knight. She is a New York Times International best-selling author, and she wrote a book, The Magic of Not Giving a Fuck. You need to choose what in life is important and what you can change anyway. And in photography, sometimes you cannot change the light, at least not in that very moment. So you just have to go with the flow. So I think that is a very valuable message from you here to our new upcoming photographers. And once again, Dean, thank you so much for making the time. I know you're at home with your kid, and you probably have loads of work to do. What is up for you in the next couple of months? Where can we experience photography in the near future of Dean Treml?
The next month or so is doing some rather uninspiring work in Switzerland. It's a job we do every year at this time because normally there's not much happening otherwise, and it's basically up shooting advertising in the ski fields around in Zermatt and Lauterbrunnen and these places, which occupies 5 or 6 weekends of January and February.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's a few things on the horizon, cliff diving, some motorsport and whatnot, but that's all going to start kicking off not till about April, May. So in the interim, a few little bits and pieces, but nothing specific.
You see how different lives can be sometimes, because here over in Asia, the weather is much warmer, so there's a lot of more stuff going on. We are in the middle of the high season, a lot of fights coming up, so that's why I'm at the beach and not in the snow. I'm enjoying the sun. At the same time, I have to carry all my equipment in the middle of the sun, so there's always two sides of the coin, I guess. So with that being said, Dean, thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, the social media links are down below in the description. So for the people who are listening on iTunes, Podbean, Overcast, or all the other platforms where you can download all our episodes for free, make sure to scroll down a little bit, click on the links, see the great work of Dean Treml, and click to support, because that is what social media apparently is all about. Dean Treml, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for the time, buddy.
I appreciate it. See you soon. Hopefully cliff diving will be coming back to Thailand soon.
Yeah, we loved it there. It would be great to come back.
See you in the near future, my friend.
Okay, cheers, bye.
Boom, and there he goes. The mighty Dean Treml, the action photographer from Red Bull, or the action photographer in many different fields, because obviously he works a lot for Red Bull, but there is a lot of other stuff involved. And I know I have been mentioning it on the podcast, and I keep on mentioning it because there's nothing more important than to see the work of people, to understand why they talk like they talk. And sometimes you need to talk to people to see why they shoot the way you shoot. And I hope we did this with this podcast with Dean Treml. I was looking forward to this. Finally, photography podcast. We should get more of these happening. So I always state I'm a freelance photographer based in Southeast Asia, and then I talk about mixed martial arts, I talk about books, I talk about adventures. I never really get deep into photography. So yeah, it's a bad habit, but I just like so many other things. I think it's not boring, but you should not get stuck in one specific field. So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and get into different things in life. Very important. So, an hour has been passing by with the Surrounded by Details podcast, and me, Steve-O, I am your host. The music is starting to play. I'm getting kicked out. I'm just joking. I always just wanted to say that. I'm actually raising the volume of the music. So, I shut up at some point. But before I do so, of course, the links of Dean, as I mentioned, and then you can follow the Surrounded by Details podcast on social media and iTunes and Podbean and Tumblr and Tumblr. What am I? Tumblr. We're not on Tumblr. I mean Overcast and so many other platforms. Make sure to look for the Surrounded by Details podcast and download all episodes for free. Audio only, but it is for free. So shut the fuck up. And yeah, also on my website, www.stevebonhage.com, stevebonhage.com, where you can find the finest fight photography out of Southeast Asia, maybe the world, maybe even the universe. Only you can judge, because Dean Treml said it before. Taste is different from person to person, so something that might look amazing to me might look like shit to you. Who knows? My point is, you can also download now our episodes on my website directly, so you don't need to go into iTunes or Podbean if that is too much. If you don't think that is too much and you're all into social media, then do follow me on social media as well. Steve.bonhage, steve.bonhage, Steve.bonhage. On Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, where you can follow my private life in case you are interested in that. But I guess it's not that private if you put it on social media. Transparency is everything nowadays. Thank you so much for tuning in, dear ladies and gentlemen, dudes and dudettes, boys and girls, no matter where you are listening from. We hope you enjoyed it, and I hope even more that you will be joining me, not tomorrow, tomorrow's Wednesday, January 10th, that you will be joining me January 11th, Thursday, because we're gonna have Mitch the Dragon Chilson on the podcast, who is also here in Phuket. He's training. He's actually my neighbor. If you don't know who Mitch Chilson is, which you should know by now because he has been on the podcast a couple of times, he is the color commentary of One Championship and the face behind Fight Shape and Butter Coffee. A lot of stuff going on. We're gonna talk cryptocurrency. We're gonna talk life in Phuket, and what is actually so amazing about this place, Phuket. Maybe we talk about that. So many subjects that can be discussed on this podcast. So make sure to tune in Thursday, January 11th. We haven't decided the time, but I guess it will be pretty much the very same time as today. With that being said, one more time, thank you so much. You are an awesome person because you are listening to whatever I have to say and whatever my guests have to say. We appreciate it. Support us. Buy yourself a t-shirt, also available on my website. And I hope you are having a continuously great Tuesday evening. As I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I'm gonna go and grab myself a beer or two with some friends and geek off into cryptocurrency. And that is the end. I'm out. It's all over.